When life ends, the body begins a silent and predictable transformation, a process guided not by consciousness but by chemistry, gravity, and biology. The first stage starts within minutes of the heart's final beat. Blood pressure drops to zero, oxygen stops flowing, and the cells that depend on it immediately begin to suffocate. This marks the beginning of what scientists call cellular autolysis, a self-destruction sequence in which each cell, unable to maintain its structure, starts to break down from the inside. Enzymes that once played vital roles in digestion, healing, and metabolism suddenly turn against their own tissues. Within the first hour, the skin loses warmth, the muscles relax, and electrical activity in the brain disappears entirely. Sensory perception ceases, but the body is still full of microscopic life. Bacteria in the gut, once harmless partners in digestion, suddenly find an environment without immune defenses. They begin multiplying rapidly, moving beyond the intestines into other organs. At the same time, gravity pulls the remaining blood downward, creating dark purple patches on the skin known as livor mortis. As oxygen levels drop, the body's pH gradually shifts, becoming more acidic. This acidity accelerates tissue breakdown, weakening cell membranes and allowing fluids to seep into surrounding spaces. While this stage is invisible from the outside, internally it is dramatic, marking the irreversible collapse of the systems that once defined a living organism. By the end of the first few hours, the body has crossed fully into the biological domain of decomposition, no longer an active human system, but a landscape of chemical reactions unfolding with mathematical precision. After the moments immediately following death, the body enters a far more dramatic stage, active decay. As the chemical bonds holding cells together collapse, bacteria seize full control. The gut, once a controlled ecosystem, becomes a lawless environment where billions of microorganisms multiply without restraint. They move beyond the intestines, invading tissues, organs, and cavities, digesting everything in their path. Their activity produces gases such as methane, hydrogen sulfide, and ammonia, and these gases push outward with increasing pressure. This internal buildup causes the abdomen to swell, sometimes doubling in size, and the skin may tighten so much that it appears polished or stretched. The odor becomes unmistakable. It is the combined result of bacterial waste, decomposing protein, and sulfur compounds that resemble the smell of rotten eggs mixed with something far more pungent. As pressure builds, fluids begin to leak from natural openings, carrying pigments and bacteria outward. The skin starts to slip as the connections between its layers dissolve, making it possible for entire sections to peel away with minimal force. Beneath the skin, blood vessels break down and release hemoglobin, creating intricate patterns known as marbling, dark, branching lines that trace the body like strange organic rivers. Insects arrive in astonishing numbers. Blowflies, guided by smell, can locate a body within minutes, even from great distances. They lay clusters of eggs in warm, moist areas such as the eyes, nose, mouth, and wounds. These eggs soon hatch into maggots, which feed aggressively on soft tissue. Their movement generates heat, accelerating decomposition even further. This stage represents the peak of biological activity, a complex interplay of bacteria, insects, chemistry, and physics. Every organism involved follows a predictable cycle, turning the human body into a temporary ecosystem that supports an entire food chain. Though unsettling, active decay is a fundamental natural process, demonstrating the efficiency with which life reclaims matter and returns it to the environment. As active decay reaches its end, the body enters a quieter yet equally transformative stage known as advanced decay. Much of the soft tissue has already broken down or been consumed, and the intense activity of insects and bacteria begins to slow. Gas production decreases, and the swollen appearance fades as the body collapses inward on itself. What remains is a mixture of tougher tissues, cartilage, tendons, and the more resilient parts of organs, now exposed to air, moisture, and soil. Maggots that once thrived in large masses complete their feeding cycle and migrate away to pupae in the surrounding environment. Without them, decomposition relies more on bacteria and fungi, which continue digesting what little organic material is left. During this stage, the body can release a nutrient-rich substance known as cadaveric soil, a dark, greasy material that enriches the ground beneath it. This creates a microhabitat that supports plants, insects, and microorganisms, making the body a temporary but powerful source of ecological renewal. Bones begin to emerge as the remaining tissue dries or breaks down. Depending on climate, this transition can take weeks in hot, humid environments or many months in cold, dry regions. environmental factors such as scavengers, rainfall, and soil acidity influence how quickly the final tissues disappear. As moisture evaporates, the body gradually mummifies in certain sections, creating leathery remnants that can persist for surprisingly long periods. The smell, once overwhelming, becomes faint and earthy. Structures such as ligaments still loosely bind the skeleton, but these too weaken over time. What remains is no longer recognizably human, but rather an arrangement of natural materials, returning slowly to the surrounding landscape. Advanced decay highlights a fundamental truth. Decomposition is not a single event, but a progression, each stage with its own rhythm, biology, and environmental role. Even as the last traces of soft tissue vanish, the body continues to influence the world around it, feeding ecosystems in ways both subtle and essential. Once the final traces of soft tissue disappear, the body enters its last and longest stage, the skeletal phase. At this point, decomposition slows dramatically, because bone is composed primarily of minerals rather than organic material. The skeleton, however, is far from unchanging. Exposed to weather, soil chemistry, and biological activity, bones begin a gradual process of breakdown. In humid climates, they may absorb moisture and soften, allowing fungi and bacteria to penetrate microscopic channels. In dry regions, they bleach under the sun, turning pale and brittle. Soil acidity plays a major role as well. In highly acidic environments, bones can dissolve entirely within a few decades, while in neutral or alkaline soil, they may persist for centuries. Scavengers continue to shape the remains long after flesh is gone. Rodents gnaw bones for the calcium, scattering fragments and altering their surfaces. Plant roots weave through the skeleton, lifting or shifting bones as they grow. Rainfall washes smaller pieces deeper into the soil. Even airflow contributes, pushing lighter fragments slowly across the ground. Over time, the skeleton disarticulates as connective tissues degrade. The spine collapses, ribs separate, and the skull may roll away from the rest of the body. Identification becomes increasingly difficult as environmental forces erase unique features. Eventually, bones begin to crumble. The outer layer, called the cortex, flakes under physical and chemical stress, revealing the porous interior that breaks down more easily. What remains resembles chalky dust, mixed with the soil, a final physical transformation, completing the journey from structured human form to elemental matter. Yet this last stage reveals an overlooked truth. Long after the body vanishes, its influence continues. Bones enrich the soil with phosphorus and calcium. Microhabitats formed during earlier decomposition persist, supporting insects, fungi, and plant life for years. In forests, sites of decomposition often become nutrient hotspots where vegetation grows more vividly. Even in death, the body becomes part of a larger ecological cycle, contributing to the ongoing renewal of the environment. As the last fragments fade into the earth, the boundary between the individual and the natural world dissolves completely. What once was a living, human being becomes indistinguishable from the landscape itself, returning every molecule to the ecosystems that shaped it. In the end, decomposition is not simply the undoing of life, but the completion of a cycle, one in which the body, through every stage, gives back to the world from which it came.